G'day crew, welcome to Goat Fantasy. It's your Monday Rage Trade edition. Nice to have your company on Goat Fantasy. Approaching round 15 of the AFL Fantasy and Supercoach season. It's Goat Fantasy Podcast brought to you by checkmyrates.au. Visit the website. It's free to use. Take control of your financial future. Brandon and the team will help you get a better home loan rate. Just mentioned the Goat Fantasy Podcast, hosted by Drew Jones. Back on deck in Melbourne after a week off. Thanks for putting up with the leaner content week last week. And lots to chat about this week as we get into 3 more trades at least across the board and a few more teams off the bye. Just a little more freedom in the moves that we can make. So in terms of our rage trades, is there anyone you really want to put a bullet in? Probably someone like a Tanner Bruin if he's still rolling with him. It was pretty disappointing for the Cats. Tuke Miller didn't provide potentially his first week in your team. Christian Petrarca has been annoying, but it's not one of those weeks where there's a lot of guys that we're probably shipping off. Maybe a Milan Murdoch at West Coast or a McCarthy given his hamstring injury going into the bye. There's a few. It's probably more, recycling some of these rookies and these mid-prices and looking at who we can bring in to make our teams better. So here's who we're looking at this week for Goat Fantasy with our rage trade. So down back, we have to replace Archie Roberts. So he's meeting with a specialist later in the week. It's a possibility that he might have surgery, which will rule him out for the rest of the season. Otherwise, it's at least a reasonable stint on the sidelines to get the shoulder ready again. They go into a bye week Essendon, so there's no absolute rush on meeting with the specialists. We'll have more news on him later in the week. But either way, he's a trade. And I think it does present an opportunity to bring John Noble into your team, who's clearly one of the most expensive but informed defenders in fantasy across Supercoach and AFL fantasy. It's a great opportunity to get him in because he's just dominating. It doesn't matter who they play against. He's getting a lot of the pill in hand. One thing to note is they have lost 3 games in a row. If Dimmer wants to change anything, whatever they're doing right now, not totally working. Will that affect Noble? Probably not, but just still something always to flag. And then there's a few value options in defence. You can always go your Whitfields and your Ashes, of course, and they were pretty good against the Saints under the lid at Marvel on Sunday. But I'm just looking down a little bit. So Rory Laird, excellent last week. I think it was about a 130. He's had a quietly pretty handy season. Incredibly reliable. He's got a great fantasy game, as we know. So he's an option this week, Rory Laird. Adelaide playing good footy, coming off the bye a couple of weeks ago. And then the other cheap option off the bye is Josh Dacos, whose price has really plummeted after a great start to the season. I think he smashed out about a 140 in opening round. It looked like he was just set for a monster year. But it hasn't worked out. A lot of people probably went there sort of post-Zorko when that injury occurred quite early in the season. He hasn't demanded selection in our teams. And I guess that's the risk here. He's played probably a little better the last week or so. Then they have the bye. And Collingwood at a real crossroads in their season and need to start getting going. They've got Port Adelaide on Saturday night. I like the look of Josh Dacos as high upside given his price has fallen away. You're backing him in for a big second half of the year. But you save a little bit of coin. Hopefully there's some upside in what you're paying for. Particularly in AFL Fantasy. Supercoach, I think it's a slightly bigger commitment, as we know, with less trades, and that's one you've got to think about pretty carefully. But I'm ticking off Josh Dacos this week. I like him, and the Hawks' run for their defenders is still good. So Sicily, Impey, Amon are all sitting there at pretty affordable prices if you'd like to go there with the Hawks. I'm assuming everyone's got Hall Kahan at this stage, but he is on the bubble in Supercoach. If you haven't invested in him yet, this is the week to do it. Through the midfield, it goes without saying that Jordan Dawson feels like an absolute slam dunk must-have if you can afford to get him into your side. And then coming off the bye, so Freo and Carlton, so Paddy Cripps, I think his form for the Blues has been excellent since the change of coach. And I would be ticking off bringing Paddy Cripps into your team as a real point of difference if you're looking for a midfield upgrade. Caleb Sarong will be back from a calf injury. I don't think we can go there, but just worth noting he's coming off the bye. Brayshaw probably scoring has gone up, went up a little bit with Sarong out of the team, but it probably plateaus with the star midfielder coming back in. And then Jai Newcombe coming off the bye as well for the Hawks. So better in real life than in fantasy. But he is at a tantalising and affordable price if you're backing him in to have a massive second half of the year. If you remember, he came home like a steam train last year, particularly sort of through finals. But he's definitely fitter this right now than he was in the back end of last year. So maybe that suggests you might get a little uptick from what we've seen from him in the past. Tim Taranto with a massive score for the Tigers against Brisbane, having an underrated Supercoach season. Tim Taranto, despite the fact that he's had a concussion game and a tag game, he is pretty cheap. And I think I said to Warney on Friday, and look, I've talked about Taranto for a few weeks as an option coming off the bye. I wasn't brave enough to do it. And he was on about 80, sort of halfway through the second quarter. He was really prolific early against the Lions. Just feels like he's going to have a few 60s and 70s left in his season just because of how bad Richmond are, and that's the big risk. And that's why I guess you're paying that price for him. But if that's all you can get to, or if it allows you to do something else at the other end, Taranto is an option. Finn Callaghan was always going to have a harder game against the Saints with those couple of run-with options. But perhaps his draw opens up a little bit now for GWS, and Clayton Oliver's having a very consistent season. So there's a few guys around the mark in the midfield. From a forwards perspective, so Brent Daniels was the one that I threw out last week, and I wasn't the only one who spoke about him. I got him in Supercoach and in fantasy. The move certainly paid off, apart from the fact that Ross the Boss tagged him because he was playing so well. But a cheap option in your forward line and through the midfield. Jordan De Goey missed training today at Collingwood. So this Monday night we're recording. So De Goey didn't train due to illness. That's Xander Maguire's reporting. They've got training again tomorrow. So hoping to catch Jordan on track. He wasn't the only one that missed. I think Pendlebury and Sidebottom as well. But he feels like an absolute alley-oop slam dunk this week. But I think still priced under 900 in AFL fantasy and playing genuine midfield minutes and scoring midfielder points as a forward. But maybe you opt for the cheaper Daniels if you've got the choice between the two, just given he's coming off the illness. Let's see how that progresses as the week goes on. Josh Tracy in Supercoach has been fantastic. He's coming off the bye if you're backing him to have a big second half of the year. And then Joe Richards, midfield minutes over the last 3 weeks for Port Adelaide, and Jake Saligo has got the forward status for Adelaide. Played really well last week. A couple of budget options in the forward line. As far as rucks go, I don't know if we're doing a lot this week, but Tristan Xerri going into a Richmond matchup for North Melbourne could go big if you need a ruck, and Luke Jackson coming off the bye. He's got Geelong and Mitch Edwards, but you'd think Blitz Arves and De Koning will put a fair bit of work into Jackson. So I don't know if I'd be going to him this week. I think he's had his dominance in the first half of the season. I'm not sure we're going to see that same unbelievable output now, as the Dockers probably try to get him fresh for finals. Plenty of rookies to talk about. So Mitch Podarski at Collingwood played really well first up. I think this is a chance to get him in this week as a pretty cheap forward. And then Jack Fitzgerald was great for Melbourne if you didn't get him last week. Herbert was good for the Eagles. Don't know if you need to go Herbert this week just because he got the bye. So you can probably wait another week on him. But it lines up well. And we might even get Jackson Artemis pretty soon for Essendon with Archie Roberts going out of the team. It does free up that halfback slot for him if he's ready off that calf. So we've got some rookies coming through in the next couple of weeks. I don't think that's going to be a problem for us. It's just a question of picking where to go to this week. I've had a look already. Jordan Dawson, how he looks in the team, and what other moves potentially he can make in Supercoach. I've made a bit of a move into the top, I think, 3K now, which for me in Supercoach is great when you're considering my rankings across the board. I'm not doing too bad, so I might try and make a bit of a move this week and see how far we can get in Supercoach. Fantasy, nothing to write home about, as you know. It's been a rough year with forced trades. So rage trades for this week. There's some names for you to get you started. And there's, as always, plenty to discuss. I'll be around the grounds tomorrow. If there's some more fantasy news, we'll get stuck into it. But have a great start to your week. We'll chat soon on Goat Fantasy.